Spilling the Beans digital health podcast is aimed at members of the digital health community globally, with guests from the United Kingdom, Australia and the United States. The podcast is available through all major podcast distributors as well as on YouTube. The show is sponsored by Woodrow Mercer Technology and Woodrow Mercer Digital Health.
Welcome to Spill the Beans podcast. My name's Duncan Goldie. Hope you're all well. This is a digital health podcast where we're just going to be sitting down for 10-15 minutes and speaking to some technology leaders from all around the world and basically just hearing from them. This week, on week 6 of lockdown, we have got Cameron Walker, who is a solutions architect, a technology lead. He wears multiple hats, but he's a very senior member of the team in Deloitte over in Melbourne. Most recently, they've been working on an app for the Australian government called COVID Safe, which is basically an app where I think it's had within the first few days around 3 million downloads. So that's about 1 in 8 people in Australia or something like that downloading the app. It's basically just a platform to track all of the updates regarding the pandemic. So they've been working on that and sort of were able to release that quite quickly. So that's something they were particularly proud of. But Cameron's worked on multiple different industries within healthcare. He's worked on finance. He's worked on loads of different platforms. He's predominantly a Sitecore specialist, so our conversation kind of gravitates towards that, and that's kind of how we know each other going back, 5-10 years ago or something like that when we first spoke to each other. So I hope you enjoy the conversation with Cameron, and take it away.
Cameron, thanks so much for taking part in this mini series. So how's everything going all the way over in Australia, in Melbourne?
Yeah, great. I mean, it's obviously odd here like everywhere else. Australia's had a pretty good run of things, to be honest. We've been locked down, but I think the actual I think the air of fear and everything has not been as bad. The cases have been pretty low. Deaths have been pretty low here compared to the rest of the world. So I think I'm glad to be here, and also from the time when I was living in London, one thing that you don't get as much in London is outside space. So just having your own back garden to go out and spend time in makes a big difference when you're locked up in your house.
Exactly. Space is a bit of a premium over here, but luckily we've had quite nice weather the past few weeks, which is, I suppose, an absolute positive for everyone in the UK, to be honest, lockdown or not. So everyone's become a runner, which is
yes.
Right. So how's the working from home situation for you? Have you got a good setup, or?
Yeah, look, so both myself and my wife are working from home, and we've had the schools have been shut down here. So one of the biggest challenges for us has been that teachers in the schools haven't been probably as good as to move to working from home than I think some of those of us in the IT world are maybe more used to working like that. Obviously, teachers aren't, so it's not been very effective remote teaching, I think. So it's been required a lot more input from those of us working from home to help educate the kids as well as doing our day-to-day job, and I think that's been quite challenging.
Yeah.
So we're set up around the kitchen table, which is not ideal, but for a short term, it's probably fine.
You do learn a lot about your partner when you're working with them. Normally, say goodbye to them for 8 hours a day. It's an interesting thing.
Yeah, look, I think there's been a lot of positives as well. I think for me, obviously, you get to sleep in a bit longer. You're not losing time commuting that you would have had otherwise. Some of that does get sucked into, you do end up maybe sitting still for longer. Yeah. We seem to be ending up in a lot more, well, maybe not a lot more, but probably there's a lot more meetings than what we used to have. But I think it's been pretty successful overall.
Yeah, good. I mean, I guess there's kind of two aspects to my next question, because obviously you work for Deloitte, and we'll go into that more in just one second. But I guess for an organization like Deloitte, do you foresee going back to the new normal, or whatever the new normal is going to be after this? Do you think there will be a change to kind of working patterns? Do you think people will, obviously, you can work from home from time to time at the moment anyway, but do you think there will be a wider kind of, I suppose, rollout to reducing down the amount of people that are in the office and having more people work remotely if they can?
Yeah, look, I think Deloitte has already been an employer that likes to promote flexible working arrangements and things like that. I think though, probably even with our clients, they like to see people there in their office or whatever, working with them. I think this has normalized and shown that it is quite workable, and that you can trust people you're working with to be working remotely and still be quite productive, which has been really great. I know in terms of equipment, we're all set up pretty well. I know some clients in some sectors maybe haven't been as well set up in terms of equipment that their staff have to work remote. We've been pretty lucky with that. Even things like VPN access into the office has been managed really well by our IT support staff in Deloitte. So it's been pretty easy. And we're quite used to working remote anyway, as you mentioned. So we're used to being portable, whether it's working from multiple client organizations or working from home or whatever else. And probably in the sort of roles that I do with clients, they don't tend to be full-time in one place all the time anyway. So it's pretty easy. It's been pretty easy and low impact for us, I think, to move to that. Into the future, I think one of the key things in the future we'll probably see is that, we've got a really national team here. So we've got people in Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane, and Perth, and Adelaide. So I think what we will definitely see is that it's going to be much easier to integrate those teams together on projects. Previously, we have done it, but it's always been a little bit challenging. Obviously, even a flight from Brisbane to Melbourne is 2.5 hours. So having people from those teams come and work on site, they might be working 3 days on, 2 days 2 days remote. I think it's going to be much more acceptable to be having just complete remote teams from our other geographies into the future. So
yeah, definitely.
I think that'll be one big difference.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that'll probably be rolled out, quite widely across the the technology industry as well, globally. So there are definitely positives to come out of it, because I suppose the ease at which we can communicate with each other and everything like that. Often in office environments we rely on technology to communicate with each other rather than getting up and going and walking and tapping someone on the shoulder. I couldn't tell you the last time I've done that. So I guess with regards to your role in particular and your team, if you can just give me a bit of a sort of an overall view of kind of what your role is within Deloitte at the moment, and then I suppose how the pandemic has impacted that, and kind of what you're doing to keep those lines of communication open and keep the projects ongoing.
So I guess my role is I play a few different roles. So I lead the Sitecore capability nationally for Deloitte. So sort of responsibility for the team, making sure we've got the right patterns and practices and the right sort of training and those sort of things for the team, having an idea of who's working on what projects, and that the projects are going along well from a technical point of view. And then also I'm working on client projects in a print sort of a lead architect role, primarily on Sitecore projects, but also on other non-Sitecore ones as well. In terms of the impact, look, to be honest, it hasn't been massive. More generally speaking, I guess across our projects, we tend to work with larger enterprise clients. So I'm working on a couple of projects at the moment, one in retail industry and one in financial services in superannuation. And those organizations are quite large. They're the top the top one or two in their class in the country. So they have big teams. They've got good support from a technology point of view, and they've moved quite seamlessly to remote working as well. I know we've had some projects impacted in industries like travel, and they've had to put projects on hold. Then we've had other projects with even things like smaller government agencies where they're just not set up to transition to offshore working. So there's been some disruption to some projects like that. But I think it's mostly been on the side where the clients have had trouble adapting that's caused us problems. And I think, like I mentioned before, if anything, it's made some resourcing of things more easy because we're able to be much more responsive, I guess, in using that national team to be responsive to project needs, because we don't have to consider costs or implications of travel between geographies at all. So I think, apart from the slowdown of some of the projects in the pipeline by some of those impacted clients and just the general uncertainty, I think, technically it's been maybe even slightly a blessing rather than anything else.
Yeah, definitely. And in terms of the sort of wider Sitecore industry, I mean, I know that there's been a few releases over the past sort of 12 to 18 months. Have you seen many changes within the sort of the way that Sitecore is being implemented in the projects that you're working on prior to the pandemic? Or not that the pandemic would affect how Sitecore is implemented, but the amount of projects you're working on might change. But in general, I mean, have you seen many sort of trends or changes in the industry?
Yeah, so obviously there's been a few big key ones that we've seen in the last couple of years. So JSS has played a larger and larger part in some of the bigger projects we've been delivering. So we deliver a lot of Sitecore engagements that aren't pure content, but they're content plus lots of integration and sort of custom web portals integrated into Sitecore platforms and things like that. So JSS for those sort of things has been quite popular. I think we're getting to a point where we're getting more comfortable with looking at SXA for some of the more simple content based sites, although I think we're still doing some more work around that to sort of align it to the way that we like to work from a front end and sort of more custom high-end design point of view. The bigger things come down the pipe that we're kind of focusing on now. Containerization is a big part, and Docker. So we're spending a lot of time, retooling our teams around that. We're seeing that pretty much, I would say that 95+% of our Sitecore work is being done on Microsoft's cloud platform, Azure cloud platform now. We had been doing a bit of AWS stuff before that, but there seems to be, obviously there's a big, I think partially it's probably a push because of Sitecore and managed cloud and those sort of things. And we're starting to see some managed cloud uptake with some clients now as well. But a lot of government clients in Australia have licensing deals and things like that as well. So that's also pushing it in that direction. So yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot in that space. But this move to containerization, I think, is going to be really important. And then looking forward, of course, to the announced SaaS offering that Sitecore is looking to release or start to release with 9.4. Obviously, doing JSS, we've got a lot of more interaction with Sitecore from our front-end development teams and knowledge of Sitecore needed in our front-end development teams as part of that. React will be one of the key things, according to the announcements, that will be used for building sites in the new world. We're looking at with a lot more .NET Core skills as well. We're finding that we're doing a lot more sort of API development that goes with our Sitecore builds. So a lot more patterns like BFF or domain APIs and those sort of things. So we're doing a lot more work in those sort of spaces as well. But I think in the pure Sitecore space, probably the containerization is having the biggest impact on our future planning at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like all of the releases for Sitecore recently have been to kind of broaden the use of the technology and be able to use it as a kind of more full suite of end-to-end kind of almost application development. Is that fair to say, or do you think it's still going to be quite niche? And do you think it will be still targeting the use of Sitecore will still be targeting these enterprise businesses, or do you think with the rollout of SaaS and those kind of things, it will be able to kind of bring it down towards a more product focused usage as well?
Yeah, look, we find a lot of clients use Sitecore, but then connect it to other things like marketing, Salesforce Marketing Cloud, or other things like that already. I wouldn't say we've got a huge number of people who use the end-to-end capabilities of Sitecore, really. Unfortunately, in some cases, I think it's still going to be really important for doing things, I think, like personalization of those web channels. But yeah, small to medium enterprise. Yeah, look, I think it's already in a lot of ways a pretty good fit for those use cases. And we've delivered some projects for smaller customers using Sitecore. I've got a lot of value out of it as well. But yeah, I think you're right. SaaS often, depending on how the pricing works, is going to open other opportunities. Yeah, maybe for those quicker to spin up type small to medium enterprise customers. I think that's probably
exactly.
fair.
Perfect. Well, I mean, it seems like there's a lot of things for people to get, interested in and excited about. I mean, what does the team look like for you at the moment? I mean, how many guys have you got sitting underneath you in the Sitecore division in Australia at the moment? I know nationally it's got to be quite a few now, right?
Yeah, so it goes anywhere from about 40 to 50 software engineers and architects that are specialised in the Sitecore space, and that's just the .NET team. Outside of that, we've got obviously front end developers for React and HTML, CSS guys who have had some experience working with Sitecore, and there's a bit of a skill to understanding how to deliver a front end development project so it's componentized and easily to put into a Sitecore scenario, and also UX and BA and testers that are familiar with the tools, which would probably, I guess, increase the size of the team who are kind of Sitecore specialized further than that. But yeah, there's probably about 40 to 50 developers in the team nationally, and I guess Melbourne, which is where I'm located, is the biggest part of that. There's probably about 20 or 30 down here in Melbourne.
Yeah, fantastic. All right, great. Well, look, thank you very much for taking the time to have a chat with me, and enjoy the rest of your evening. If people wanted to get in touch and find out a little bit more about your team or anything like that, is there a particular way they can do that?
Yeah, I mean, probably the easiest way is to look me up on LinkedIn and connect through there to find a bit more about our background. You can reach out through I think Deloitte Digital website. But yeah, probably hit me up on LinkedIn. I don't do a lot of Twittering and those sort of things. So yeah, maybe LinkedIn's the best way to go.
So thanks guys for tuning in. Thanks to Cameron, who has taken time out of his day and sitting in his son's bedroom to record a podcast with us, which is a bit of a first. But yeah, I hope you managed to take something away from it, and please remember to subscribe and listen out for the next edition of Spill the Beans podcast, which should be released next week. Thanks.